Okay, think about those moments, a single choice, and suddenly everything branches out. The consequences just ripple outwards in ways you couldn't have seen coming.
Hmm.
Today, we're doing a deep dive into, well, one of the oldest stories we have about exactly that. It's often called The Fall, and it comes from a really foundational text.
Right. Very foundational.
And just to be clear, our mission here isn't really about interpretation or getting into the theology of it all. We just want to understand what the narrative itself, this ancient story, actually presents. Like, what are the key moves?
What does it actually say?
Exactly. What happens? And, what might that tell us? For you, the learner, this is a chance to see this story of temptation, knowledge, consequences. It's packed with these surprisingly human details that honestly still feel relevant.
They really do.
Okay, so let's unpack this pivotal moment. Where does it really kick off?
Well, what's immediately striking, I think, is how the serpent is introduced.
Yeah.
Right at the start, it says it's more crafty than any of the wild animals.
Crafty. Not just smart, but crafty.
Yeah, it suggests something subtle, maybe even strategic. And then its first question to the woman, did God really say, you must not eat from any tree in the garden?
Ah, yeah. That's not quite what was said, is it? It's twisting it slightly.
Exactly. It's planting doubt. It's not a flat-out denial, but like this gentle probe, almost inviting her to second-guess the rule.
Right. And her answer is interesting, too, because she corrects the serpent about eating from most trees. But then talking about that one specific tree, she says God commanded, you must not eat it or even touch it or you will die.
Mm-hmm. The touch it part.
Yeah. Now, the text, as we have it, doesn't actually record God saying don't touch it. So what's going on there? Is that her adding a little extra fence around the rule?
That's a great way to put it, a little extra fence. It could suggest, a human tendency. Maybe we amplify rules sometimes, perhaps to be extra safe, or maybe it's just a slight misunderstanding creeping in.
Like we build our own hedges around the actual boundary line.
Precisely. It's a fascinating little detail. And then comes the serpent's big move, the direct contradiction. You will not certainly die.
Boom! Right there.
Yeah, it's the core challenge.
Yeah.
The established order just gets questioned head on. But the serpent doesn't just leave it there.
Right.
It gives a reason, a motivation.
Right, the why.
It says, for God knows that when you eat from it, your eyes will be opened and you will be like God, knowing good and evil.
So it's not just about avoiding death. It's about gaining something huge. Knowledge. God-like understanding. That's a powerful lure.
Immensely powerful. The appeal to wisdom, to knowing more.
And this is where, the woman's perspective becomes really key. The text tells us what she observes. She sees the food is good for food, okay, basic need. Then pleasing to the eye, so aesthetics, and also desirable for gaining wisdom. That's the clincher, right? The very thing the serpent promised.
Exactly. It lines up perfectly. It shows it wasn't purely impulsive. There's this, assessment of benefits.
It's a kind of internal calculation.
Yeah. And then she takes it. She eats. And crucially, the text says she gave some to her husband who was with her, and he ate.
He was right there. It wasn't like she had to go find him. It's a shared act.
A shared transgression. Absolutely. So, okay, they've done it. The act is complete. What happens, immediately?
The immediate fallout isn't, thunder and lightning. It's internal. Then the eyes of both of them were opened, and they realized they were naked.
Wow. So it's a shift in perception.
Yeah, exactly. Something changed inside them. What was maybe totally natural before is suddenly exposure, shame.
It seems like it. Because their instant reaction is to sew fig leaves together to make coverings.
Yeah.
It's the first recorded human act of concealment, isn't it? Trying to cover themselves up.
That's right. And then the narrative takes another turn. God appears, just sort of walking in the garden. In the cool of the day. It sounds almost casual.
It does. It's a very relatable image in a way.
Yeah.
But their reaction is anything but casual. They hide.
Among the trees. Why hide? Is it just the nakedness or is it guilt too?
Probably both. Fueled by that new awareness. Hiding seems like the natural consequence of feeling exposed and likely knowing they disobeyed. It sets up the confrontation.
And God calls out, "Where are you?" Which, probably isn't about God needing GPS coordinates.
Right. It feels more like an invitation, like, come out, let's talk about this. A prompt for responsibility.
And the man's answer, it's pretty revealing, right?
Very. He says, I heard you in the garden and I was afraid because I was naked, so I hid. He links the fear directly to the nakedness.
And God immediately picks up on that. The follow-up is laser-focused. Who told you that you were naked? Have you eaten from the tree?
Connects the dots, directly linking their new state, their fear, their hiding, back to the forbidden act.
And what happens next is just Peak human behavior, maybe? The blame game starts?
Oh, yeah. The man doesn't say, yes, I did.
Nope. He says, the woman you put here with me, she gave me some fruit, and I ate.
Wow. Points the finger at the woman and even sort of loops God into it. The woman you gave me.
Total deflection. Avoids taking ownership. Why do you think that initial seed of doubt from the serpent made this blame shifting so easy, maybe?
That's a really good question. Maybe because once the desire for that godlike knowledge took root, the act itself felt less like pure defiance and more like reaching for something valuable.
So it wasn't just my fault.
Perhaps that's part of the psychology. So when confronted, it's easier to point to the chain of influence. And the woman does the same thing, doesn't she? God asks her, what is this you've done?
And her response?
The serpent deceived me, and I ate. Again, pointing backwards, not I chose, but I was deceived.
Right. It's a chain reaction of avoidance, and this leads straight into the consequences being laid out, starting with the serpent.
Yeah, the serpent's curse is pretty vivid.
Yeah.
Crawling on its belly, eating dust.
Yeah.
And this declared enmity, this conflict between it and the woman and between their offspring.
That specific line about crushing the head and striking the heel, it's such a powerful image. It's echoed through centuries of interpretation.
Absolutely. Then, for the woman, the consequences are tied to, well, life-giving processes and relationships, intensified pain in childbearing, painful labor,
Mm-hmm.
and a shift in relationship dynamics.
Hmm.
Your desire will be for your husband, and he will rule over you.
And then Adam, his consequences.
They're linked directly to his actions. Listening to his wife and eating the fruit. It's the ground itself that's cursed because of him.
So survival gets harder.
Much harder. Thorns and thistles. Getting food becomes painful toil, and ultimately the return to dust. Mortality is explicitly stated as the end point, a stark contrast to any potential for immortality before.
It's all quite heavy, but then amidst all this, there's this moment where Adam names his wife Eve, mother of all the living.
Yeah, it's a strange moment, almost hopeful.
Yeah.
Or maybe just acknowledging reality, their shared future, even in this new, harsher world.
And then God steps in and makes them clothes. Garments of skin. It's practical, almost parental in a way. An act of provision despite everything.
It is. It acknowledges their new state, their vulnerability. Then comes the final act, the banishment.
Right. Why exactly are they expelled from the garden?
The text gives a specific reason. God says, essentially, look, the man has become like one of us, knowing good and evil.
Mm-hmm.
He must not be allowed to reach out his hand and take also from the tree of life and eat and live forever.
So the concern is immortality combined with this new knowledge. That specific combination is the problem.
That seems to be the core reasoning presented. Acquiring that knowledge fundamentally changed them and allowing eternal life in that changed state. Well, it seems it would disrupt the established order somehow. It raises big questions about knowledge itself.
So they're sent out, expelled from Eden to work the ground they came from.
Yes, and the way back is blocked.
Yeah.
Cherubim, these powerful angelic beings, and a flaming sword are placed to guard the path to the tree of life.
Separation complete. No going back.
Pretty much. So if we just, trace the core narrative we've unpacked,
Mm-hmm.
it starts with the question, planting doubt, leading to a temptation focused on gaining a specific kind of knowledge, this godlike awareness,
Mm-hmm. Then the act of disobedience, driven by that desire.
followed instantly by that internal shift, the awareness of nakedness, shame.
Then confrontation, hiding, blame.
And then finally, these consequences that fundamentally reshape everything, their relationship with each other, with the natural world, with the divine. And our focus, as we said, was just to follow those steps as the text lays them out.
Just trying to understand the sequence, the internal logic presented in this ancient story itself.
Exactly. Without layering on centuries of later interpretation, just seeing what's there on the page.
Which brings us to our final thought for you, the learner. Thinking about these elements we've discussed, choice, the powerful draw of knowledge, the reality of consequences as they play out in this specific narrative. What resonates most with you? When you think about your own life, your own experiences with learning, with making decisions, are there echoes here?
It's a story that really digs into some fundamental aspects of, well, being human.
Definitely something to mull over. Its themes are ancient, but maybe surprisingly close to home.